It's very good. Hello, everyone. We'll be starting in just a moment. We're letting everyone in. Okay, I think we still have a few more people coming in. Let's see. Okay, then. So I guess we're ready to start. I think we have everyone here. Kwe Nidobak, Undelawizi, Vera Longtoe Sheehan, Nia Alnôbaiwi. Hello, friends. My name is Vera Longtoe Sheehan. Tonight, I'll be the moderator and panelist for the discussion. Thank you all for joining us for this critical conversation on outdoor education and allyship with American Abenakis. Before we start, we need to thank everyone who made tonight possible. The talk is hosted by the Abenaki Arts and Education Center and the Vermont Abenaki Artist Association with our partners at the Atowi Project, Abenakis Trails Project, and Alnôbaiwi. This talk is sponsored by Vermont Wilderness School and co-sponsored by the Bonnyvale Environmental Education Center, Crow's Path, EarthWalk Vermont, Farm and Wilderness Foundation, the Green Mountain Conservancy, the Inside Outside program at Antioch University, the North Branch Nature Center, the Retreat Farm, Retribe, Susu Community Farm, and the Garland School, as well as the Nature Museum. We also wish to thank Ash Young and Eloise Beal for their technical and chat support in the background while we all have this discussion this evening. Now that we've thanked everyone, we can get started with the program itself. And it's my pleasure to introduce some of my friends and colleagues that I work pretty closely with at various Abenaki organizations. And I'm going to start with just mentioning their names and organizations, and we'll dive a little bit deeper in just a moment. So first, I'd like to introduce Sherry Gould of Abenakis Trails Project, Rich Holschuh from the Atowi Project, and Chan Crawford from Alnôbaiwi. And we can get started by learning a little bit about each of the panelists. So I'd like to start with Sherry, then go to Rich and Chan, and start by asking you each to share a little bit about yourselves. And Sherry, if you could get us started.
Kwai. In Delaware, Sally Gould, in Manadnock, in Wikiak, Massachusetts, Nodzia Basno Dakad. I said, hello, my name is Sherry Gould, and I was born in Peterborough, New Hampshire, and I live in a little section of Warner, New Hampshire, near Lake Massachusetts, halfway between Bradford and Henniker. And I'm a professional basket maker.
Thank you for that, Sherry. Can we go to Rich next?
Sui, Wulioni, Vera, Kwai Nidombak, Indelawizi, Litz, Lisal, Taindai, Wantastagak, Dali Sukwakik, Quinonguzian, we go down Namilan, Pamlonquik, Ulipayo, Yodalik, Atsi. My name is Rich, and I am director for Atowi Project here in Wantastagak, which you probably know as Brattleboro. I see Amy Hyatt has Wantastagak under her name. Excellent. Glad to see that represented. So we are here in Sakoki country, where Brattleboro is on the Quinnipiac on the Connecticut River. And Atowi Project is a cultural outreach organization here for you and here for the community to share stories and to learn together.
Thank you for that, Rich. And Chan, could you take a moment and introduce yourself as well?
Of course. Hello, everybody. My name is Chan Crawford. I'm Missisquoi Abenaki. I'm a sophomore at Brown University. I'm on the board of directors of Alnôbaiwi, and I'm a crafter, I'm a dancer, and yeah, that's probably what you need to know about me.
Fantastic. Thank you all for sharing. I thought it was a little bit better to hear from all of you directly versus me trying to say who you are. Next, what I would like to do is for each one of us to take a moment and introduce our organizations. And once again, if we could start with Sherry, and we can each take about 5 to 7 minutes to give an introduction to our organization and what we do.
Okay, thanks, Vera. So we have Abenakis Trails. It's a project we started in our area where we live in New Hampshire. And Daryl Peasley came up with the idea. Here in New Hampshire, we had about 10 years ago when we got the Commission on Native Affairs bill put through, we heard from a lot of legislators that New Hampshire was just a pass-through state. No Native Americans ever lived here. So that really aggravated Daryl and all of us, of course, and just really exemplified the need for education. So that's what we've been doing. We started it in July of 2020. And that was a time when statues were getting torn down all around. So it's a project that's comes out of the Nulhegan band of Cowsuk Abenaki nation. So we would meet with each of the towns, and it was kind of a nation to nation meeting where we just wanted to let them know who we were and what we were doing. We started in Hopkinton, but it became clear really quick that our people didn't live within the confines of the boundaries on maps that Europeans have put on them. So we quickly spread to 4 towns, and then we were just like, okay, we could keep going, but we're going to stop right here. And we spent a whole year exploring sites that we knew about in our area and looking for mythbusters. We were very fortunate to have Dr. Bob Goodby work with us, and all the historical societies in all the towns. And Nancy Jo Shabbat and Lynn Clark are 2 that have worked a great deal with Native American artifacts and museums in the area. And so I'm going to leave people out. We had so many incredible community partners. Mount Kearsarge Indian Museum is in the area. So after spending a year working in Warner, Henniker, Hopkinton, and Bradford, we moved on this year to Hillsborough and Washington. Last year we got to sit in on an excavation happening in Washington. And just the other night, the archaeologist presented the findings. He discovered a hearth that he believes was actually a kiln. There's evidence that would indicate it was likely a kiln, and it dates from the mid-1700s to 1800, which goes along with our findings that the Abenaki were still here and active in that time frame. So lots of really fun and exciting things we're finding. Next year, we'll be expanding to Newbury and Sunapee. We tend to do things like hikes, paddles. Last year it was so rainy, we didn't do many hikes or paddles, but the first year we did a lot of them. We found and documented the Bradford Springs, which is a sacred site, Indian tie-up. There's just so many sites around and getting the stories behind them. And it's just been really fun and exciting work. You're muted.
Thank you for that, Sherry. Next, could we move on to Rich? Rich, can you tell us about the Atowi project and what you do, how it started? Thank you.
Everybody knows one Abenaki word, one Abenaki word, the word for yes, That's entered American English, so all right, there's your language lesson, at least the beginning. Atowi is an Abenaki word as well. It means together in space and time. And it is a wonderful concept. It describes where we are right now, all of us right here together. And it is an evocation of the realization that time really does not exist. All we have is right now, and we have to decide what to do with it. In your position as educators and teachers, leaders, you're in a position to help that happen, the folks that you work with. Give them the information they need to work with and to make those decisions in the places where they find themselves. So here we are today. We are created out of the past. We carry the past forward in ourselves, and we will create the future based on what we do today. And so that's a lot of responsibility, but it's a good responsibility. Atowi is here to help share these lessons. We are place-based. We are under the fiscal sponsorship of Retreat Farm here in Brattleboro, which many of you may be familiar with. People also connected with a mission of people and place, putting those together, being a community asset. So here we are in Wantastagok, and this is where our base is, where our hearts are. I am a citizen of Alnôbaiwi tribe, along with Vera and my colleague and co-director here at Atowi, Melody Walker-Mackin. Melody lives up north in Barrie. So she works remotely, and she is the mother of a very, very energetic little 2-year-old. And, you know, that's a full-time job in and of itself. So, so there's that. But I'm down here in Brattleboro. If you need anything, please feel free to get a hold of me. Our website is atowi.org. I am Rich at atowi.org, and Melody is Melody at atowi.org. And, you know, it's not that complicated. And we'll do what we can. There is a lot of interest, a lot of support. I am gratified to be able to say that. And this gathering here tonight is part of what we do. We share knowledge, we build community, we make connections. We maintain a website. We have a very active Facebook page, Atowi at Facebook. Check it out. I'm on there 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. It consumes one, as you know. But there's a lot of good things to share. So I want to put that out there as a resource for you. Events, things of interest in the region and that intersect with our mission. Atowi is about 1.5 years old, so we're relatively young, but getting busier and busier as there is a great deal of hunger for knowing more about how to be in relationship with the indigenous people of this place. And I will just sort of wrap up with the idea that indigeneity encompasses those two terms equally. If you look it up in the dictionary, it's described as the original people of a place, and we often will focus on the people themselves, whoever they may be, the name they go by, whether they are Abenaki or Mohawk or Dene or Apache or any one of a number of hundreds and hundreds of different tribes across this continent. But it is the places that they come from that make them who they are. And so in your work, in the outside, in place, that's kind of where where it hits the ground. And that body of knowledge held by these indigenous people of all of these places cannot be separated from those people. It's a package. And so we need to consider them together. And it's not a one and done thing. It's ongoing. Culture is alive, culture is resilient, culture changes. And to take something after acquiring it and then make it one's own is continuation of the process of colonization. So I want to ask you to reach out to the people in your place, stay in touch with them, put their voices first, work with them, build community. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Rich. It's much appreciated. And Chan Lee, could I ask you to go next and tell us a little bit about Alnôbaiwi?
Yeah, thank you. So I have a little slide presentation to show, just to sort of give a visual component to this. So I'm representing Alnôbaiwi. As you can see there, Alnôbaiwi is Abenaki for in the Abenaki way. And that really ties into what we believe in our mission statement, which is to learn and teach Vermont Abenaki culture and heritage. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit. Here's a little just snippet from our website. And that is our mission statement. That's everything that we sort of base ourselves off of. So we really work to provide access to Abenaki culture and history in a number of different ways. We work a lot through the Vermont Indigenous Heritage Center, which is located in Burlington, Vermont. As you can see here, I have this little picture of part of the little setup we got going on. There's a summer lodge, there's a little Abenaki kitchen there, and we do all sorts of events out there. And on the inside, there's a museum component to it. But really, we sort of just try to engage the public and other Abenaki community members, with the culture, with the history, and to make it very accessible. And we're not very specific to just one aspect of the culture. We don't just focus on necessarily language or say just on music, but we try to sort of blend all of it. And so it really comes together in different ways. And here you see a couple pictures from one of our exhibits on the inside. This is from Alnôbaiwi's Instagram page. So some ways that we provide access to, say, Abenaki history is we have classes, we have exhibits, as you're seeing here, as on the last slide too. We've even had some historical reenactments on the grounds. We provide material history. People can come, they can see the clothing of their ancestors, they can see artifacts, whatever, tools, pictures, and in addition to that, we also just give learning resources. Even now, actually, there's a class on beadwork that I know is happening right now through Alnôbaiwi. So we really try to make the history accessible to as many people as possible. And we also incorporate a lot of learning traditional skills, which also goes into teaching those also. So here's just a couple of pictures I just had on hand. Some of them are from the Instagram page as well. So you can see there's actually my mom in the bottom right showing someone some wampum and just sort of explaining the process. And this is really important because sometimes there are, skills in the community that more people could and should know. And we sort of give a means where they can sort of teach other people. For example, those corn husk dolls, just a little bit of culture that everyone else can learn. And then also some of these are, made public also. When we think about like these growing food, for example, like Abenaki agricultural practices, which are, very specific and have a specific ways of doing things. We can make a lot of food, have community events, the public can come, and everyone can sort of benefit from the spreading of knowledge. And that's sort of a big part of our organization is, I guess, learning and then also sharing that knowledge and just sort of growing and really just trying to make that accessible too. We believe everybody should have be able to access that, to know that we don't, we're intertribal. We are not involved in politics or any way. So really the whole point is just that anybody who's Abenaki, who's not Abenaki, they can come and learn. And, for those Abenaki people, they can also just learn those community cultural skills for themselves, which is really important to us. And so here we'll also have more pictures of food. We have this little garden outside also, and we grow different kinds of foods, obviously corn, squash, beans, kind of the staples of like Abenaki diet, but like a couple others. And we really pull in a lot of people. I don't have a ton of pictures of community members here just because I didn't want to have to ask 30 people for permission to use their picture on here. But we have a very strong community that all comes together to sort of pull all this together to build our exhibits, to grow this food, then to eat that food, and to sort of come and teach and learn. And and honestly, one of the most important things I think that Alnôbaiwi provides is a space just to be Abenaki. You think about every day, this world we live in, we are living in a settler colonial country, and sometimes, you just need a break from that. And I think Alnôbaiwi does that with just having space, having ceremonial space where people can just come together, be in a community and celebrate as one. So that's just my quick little rundown, and yeah, I'll pass it back.
Thank you so much, Chan. I appreciate your presentation as well. And so when I introduced myself in the beginning, I don't believe that I also said that I was the director of two different Abenaki organizations. The first is the Vermont Abenaki Artist Association, and the second is the Abenaki Arts and Education Center. So I have a quick little presentation about both of those organizations that I'm calling VAAA and AAEC in 5 minutes. So let's see if we can really hold true to that. So what ended up happening in 2011 and 2012, 4 Abenaki tribes fought for and were awarded state recognition, making it legal for the first time in history for Abenakis to be able to sell their art as Native American made. So once we had recognition and we could legally sell Native American art, it was really important for us to have an organized way of doing that, in a way that people could find our artists and so forth. And that's how the Vermont Abenaki Artist Association was born. And part of our mission is teaching the public about Abenaki art, artists, and culture. And we do that in a variety of different ways. And there's a picture of me doing a curatorial talk. So the organization works with our artists to create some exhibits that are limited engagement, and also traveling exhibits that travel throughout the New England states to educate the public about Abenaki culture. We have, this is actually an older artist directory showing about 30 or 40 artists, but we have well over 180 artists. We were the first ever long-term intertribal Abenaki organization. And it's really cool because we get to work with artists from all of the recognized tribes. And we also work with other Abenaki community members that have not received recognition, maybe for their tribe, or maybe their family just doesn't belong to a tribe because they've chosen not to. Here are some more pictures from some of the exhibits. This is from Traditional Sources, Contemporary Visions, which was our first ever exhibit. One of the things we tried to do is span all of Abenaki history, not to just be in the present or the past, but we basically talk about the continuity of Abenaki culture, and we pass traditions from one generation to the next, and we work with the public. And we also do education programs. One of the most important ones is presenting Abenaki culture in the classroom, which we've been offering for many years, and it's also available for credit from Castleton University. And we've been teaching that course for a while. We do customized education programs for schools, school districts, and arts, cultural, and humanities organizations as well. And so what ended up happening when we started the Artist Association, there was this realization that people didn't know who the Abenaki really were, and education became more and more of our work. And so we have a sister organization now that came out of that. The sister organization is called the Abenaki Arts and Education Center. And it was formed because teachers could not find Abenaki resources. So we're an open education resource, meaning we have free education resources that, whether you're an outdoor educator, classroom educator, college professor, kindergarten teacher, you can go to this website to find Abenaki resources and learn more about us. We also have virtual heritage events that we offer throughout the year. We also have, there are a speaker series that's going on currently, and we're on all sorts of social media. So you can find the Artist Association on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And the Education Center is on Facebook. Both have websites. I think Ash is dropping the links into the chat box as we speak. And here are some here are the websites. If you want to copy them down, my email address is vera.sheehan@abenakiart.org. For the Arts and Education Center, abenaki.education or @gmail is how you can reach us. So thank you so much for giving us that moment in time to talk about those. And once again, we're open to talking to the public, and we want to be there as a resource, just like each one of these organizations. So that's a little bit about us. And we have received an overwhelming amount of support from everybody who registered for the program. I think we had 59 people register for the program, so that's pretty exciting. And to hear all the accolades we received from outdoor educators and other types of educators that want to work with the Native American community and are very concerned about how to be good allies. And so at this point, what we did was I looked through the questions and I found like a few questions that seemed to be the essence that was repeated over and over again in questions that were suggested by this audience. So we'll start with those questions, see where they go. And if we have time left over, we can also take questions from the chat box. So let me read off the first question. So the first question, how would you like to be supported and collaborated with? And what is your future vision for allyship and collective healing around past and current harms in Vermont? And if we could just stay in the same order, I think that'll help keep us on, in sync. So if we could start maybe with Sherry. So what does allyship look like for Abenaki Trails project?
Well, thanks, Vera. That's a great question. For us, as I said earlier, we started off by going to the town as we're the Nalhegan Abenaki, and we are here to tell you what we're doing, and we didn't ask anything from them. So it's been really, really important to us that Abenaki Trails is Abenaki led, and that we have the support of our tribe and of all of the other organizations. I mean, Vera's done art shows with us to curate shows locally. And, Rich, we had a meeting with some of the people in the Monadnock region on some sites. And so we're all working together. For our allies, it's following our lead. And so there's been like this shift where historically it was other groups did things, and then it was like, oh, we should include the Abenaki. Oh yeah, come on in. But the agenda's already set, and you find yourself like, where do I fit in? And so I feel like people are doing the first thing tonight by being here, by getting educated about who we are and what we do, and then reach out and find out how you can fit in with what we're doing and join in our mission, because it just makes all the difference. It's not that for us, I can speak for us, we're not, how do I say it? Our mission is just to further the goals of learning a more balanced history and presenting a very accurate and clear picture of who we are today. And so it's not that it's an art and agenda that we have. It's just that when we set the agenda, it's exciting and people come in, and there's none of that trying to figure out where things fit in. And for me, that's really important. When other organizations reach out and say, hey, why don't you come? We're doing this thing, and it's half planned. And then it just feels like I don't know, it's different. There's just a really different, I think we've lived our whole lives in the mainstream culture and with the mainstream culture in the driver's seat. And so just being able to do these projects like Rich was talking about, and Shan and Vera, where as Abenaki people, we're like, hey, this is really important to our people. This is something where we need to go and do things. And there's none of the politics. I kind of liked what Shan said about letting go of the politics and just, here we are, we're people, and we have these needs as a community, and and we're really excited about, and people here are loving it. Like, we started the Abenaki Seeds Project, and we started it because we have Kearsarge Food Hub, a local organic growing farming group, and that are working really, really hard for farm to table and selling local food locally and all those good things. So we aired the Gather movie and we talked about it together. And out of that, the community just all really wanted to grow our heritage seeds and provide them to our food pantry. And so it's really collaborative. People are loving it. They get to talk about, but it's like things got flipped upside down. So it's like, this is important to us that our seeds get preserved and that our healthy foods are provided to our citizens. And then other people come in and say, wow, that's really cool. So I don't know if it's making sense, but just to kind of flip that conversation from, oh yeah, you guys are Indians over there, what do you want to do, to what are the Indians doing? What can we do to fit in with that? It's slight, but it's a whole different feel, and everybody seems to be loving it. So I think that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you for that, Sherry. And Rich, would you like to go next?
Sure, Sherry, you're a hard act to follow. I have nothing left to say, but I'll say a couple things. I want to echo everything that you said. Those are all very important. And so you basically have stolen most of my thunder, but I'll add a little. I think it's really important for us as relatively small organizations from a relatively small group of people in the larger society to prioritize what we do, to educate others as to what those priorities might be in terms of, where are the needs most best, where are the needs that need to be addressed first, looking for a magnification from you folks. We can only do so much. You can put our voices front and center. You can also magnify those and lift those up. As Atowi as an organization is a little more political than some others. We do get involved in politics, and it's messy and it's not fun. But the fact is that certain people hold most of the power and the resources, and you can work around the edges and do what you want to, but eventually you're going to run into it. For example, you folks are in outdoor education. Who controls the land use policies in this state? The state of Vermont, right? Agency of Natural Resources, other bureaus of jurisdiction have no Indigenous voices on their advisory panels. It's kind of crazy. That needs to change. And so those of you who are in a position to influence, please use your influence. We can't do all this by ourselves. We need help. So there's that. Other things, Native folks are often looked at as natural-born environmentalists. It's not true. They're human beings, right? They're human beings, and most of us have been immersed in mainstream culture for a very long time, and so it doesn't come naturally. However, these values are there in the traditional teachings, in the culture, to the degree that it is held still, and needs to be recovered. We need help with that in terms of resources, support. The value is there in the teachings, and we are honored to be able to share that to the degree that we are able. At the same time, again, there's only so many of us. So, if you turn to us and you have questions, we welcome those. Please be patient. Please don't be bashful about compensating for that if and when it comes up. I'm going to kind of leave it there. It's that magnifying effect, that that being aware that there's only so much that we can do, and there's a lot that you can do as an ally, with the direction being shared with those who hold that knowledge. We're pulled in a lot of directions at once. Having this connection here with you folks tonight is one of those steps toward being strategic, being able to magnify our ability, connecting with a whole lot of people at once, and then let it spread out from there. I'll leave this over to Chan now.
Thank you, Rich. Go ahead, Chan.
Yeah, you both have said some really terrific things that I really think are important, and things I would say are somewhat important when thinking about Alnôbaiwi too. And I guess so, just add on a little bit though, is that, I guess in your day-to-day, some of the most important things is just, when you come to our events that, you talk about it, but not in a way in which you're sort of projecting your ideas about what being native or what you think Abenakis should look like. Because I feel like that's something that we get exposed to all the time, but our organization is all about learning and then teaching our culture, and for people to discover it, for people to develop it. And I guess what we really don't need is people sort of trying to, maybe accuse us of furthering one group's agenda or something, or trying to say that, we're all just, we're this one person's thing, and we're just trying to, we have our own personal interests or something. It's, we're trying to do something for the community, for general Abenaki people, and for the public to also learn, because, the state does not always have a lot of Abenaki visibility. And so what we don't need is we really don't need people trying to sort of put their own ideas on what we should be doing, what we should look like, when you talk about us. The most important thing you can do is, when you come to our events, you talk to us, you ask questions. That's what we're, there for. And we love to talk to people, be respectful and have an open mind. And then when you talk to other people about it, try to just, keep your own opinions necessarily out of it. We represent ourselves. Let us do that, In all cases, let Abenaki people talk about themselves, represent themselves. In this case, just like that. And so, yeah, I think that's one thing that's just really, really important. We want our culture to be accessible to Abenakis, and you'll only, you can drive people away if you really try to change what that means, or if you try to put divisions on things and restrict that kind of thing. And I think a lot of us see that actually pretty daily, but yeah, it's just one of those things that's really, really important, I think, and especially important with Alnôbaiwi. Thank you.
Thank you, Chan. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Sherry. I love all of these ideas. And just to kind of recap a little bit, invite us to the table at the very beginning. As soon as you have an idea, make sure you build sponsorship in or compensation, so it's not extractive, also that idea of making sure you're uplifting our voices and representation the way we want to be represented without bringing in myths and stereotypes about what people think we're about. I'm loving these ideas that the three of you brought to the table, and I have a few extra. So there's no shortage of ideas here. First, I noticed that everybody has a website. Go to these websites and see what events are happening. We have social media. Go visit us on Facebook. Look at the events, share our events, share our posts, like and love our posts, because when you see it, like it, love it, and you know, what's that? Like it, love it, and comment, your friends will see it, like it, love it, and comment, and more people are going to learn who we are, what we're about, what our homeland is about, what our cultural values are, and so much more. And I don't want to take too much time to talk, but just yeah, invite us to the table as a partner, and not necessarily, this is one of the things I heard in each one of the threads of conversation we heard, is like, let us uphold the mission for our organization. So it's not necessarily going to be about the mission of your organization. See how your mission, your organization can support our missions as well. I think in the past, there has been so much, this is our mission to do such and such, and we want you to do that. And understand if something also doesn't fit into our mission, or I think it was mentioned that we have very small organizational capacity. You know, each organization might only have a few people. So be patient with us and help us grow. If you have, and I'm lifting other people's ideas as well. I think they're all great ideas, and we probably share a lot of these ideas too. If you have some pull within an organization, within, whether it be a school organization, outdoor education organization, within the government, whatever it is you can do, like to uplift who we are, to have people reach out to help us even, I think that's fantastic. So I don't want to keep on going on and on, but these things are all so important. So another question we have from the registration forms is, I'm curious to hear the panel's thoughts on the line between a collective voice, or a collective Abenaki voice, particularly around the ideas of appropriation, storytelling, skill sharing, versus the thoughts and ideas of individual Abenaki. This is what it means to be a good ally. What it means to be a good ally varies from person to person, organization to organization. So how do you seek answers around this? So I think what I'm getting out of this is that, you know, we are individuals and we are part of tribes and part of organizations. So like, how do we see those things like cultural appropriation as a human being, or as an organization, or as a tribe, as well as how do you see allyship? So is it the same for you as the organization, as the tribe? And are there different views?
Well, I think I'm going to focus on the whole idea of collective voice versus individual voices. So I think that historically and pretty consistently and right up today, Abenaki people have been known to be pretty decentralized. We never had one grand sachem in control of everybody. I think that it has been a major part of the difficulties between colonial settlers and Abenaki people early on, right up through till today, is that people always want to know who speaks for you all. And really, there's no one who speaks for us all. And, you know, individuals so Abenaki were always small family bands. And then from time to time would rally together if there was a reason or a cause and they needed that. But in terms of resources, in terms of just being able to function, as Rich and Vera and Chan have all pointed out, there aren't a lot of us. So the more we can keep our organizations flowing smoothly by people being able to work together, and that works best. What we've learned from our culture historically, and it's still true today, is to work within small groups. So, so we do that. And that doesn't mean we don't have a unified voice on things. There are many times when things happen and we recognize, whoa, we need to get together and you know, talk about what's our unified voice on this. What do we think? And we'll disagree amongst ourselves until we come to something we all feel good about when it's important to do that. But as a rule, no one Abenaki speaks for all of us. And I try really hard to say, I can only speak for myself. Within Abenaki Trails, we have differences of opinion, even within our small family band. And so I try not, when I speak for Abenaki Trails, I try to make it what I know we all agree on. And the same thing is true of the tribe, and you can go right on up to the coalitions that we form when we need to. But I know there's a lot more to be said about that, and I'm not going to steal Rich's thunder this time, I hope.
You, Sherry. Okay, Rich, we would love to hear your thunder.
Okay, well, bam. Yeah, so this is a topic that I have spent an inordinate amount of time thinking about, and I probably will spend more. The individual versus the collective, the community versus the person. Indigenous cultures are all built around relationship, and that is relationship with each other as human beings, being human, and with all of our relations. That's what makes it indigenous. When something is done, it is for the greater good. In the United States, Western culture in general, the individual reigns supreme. It is all about the person. People will take classes and seek knowledge for personal enrichment. I have to say that from my viewpoint, that is stopping short of the entire point. The only reason that we as individuals should try to fulfill ourselves or have access to the things that we should need to know is so that we can share that with others, so that we can share that with each other, so we can share that with all of our relations. It empowers you to fulfill your responsibilities. We do not have any rights as individuals. We have no rights. That is a Western conceit. We have responsibilities. We are not in charge. We are not on top of the heap. We are on a circle. And so it's good to know these things so that we can share them with each other. We can share them with all of our relations other than human. And if this change does not come, the world will continue on its merry way to destruction. We see that all around us. And so we need to accept this responsibility. We need to recognize it. And where are we going to gain that understanding? From cultures that see the world through other eyes. And that is going to be putting the community together, back together again, reforging those connections, building relationships. So I intentionally use the pronouns you'll see after my name on my little box here. My pronoun is Awani. This is me attempting to decolonize myself through the language as I am learning it, Western Abenaki. It is not a gendered language. We do not focus on gender. It is not that important. It is one aspect of who we are on the earth. But I am a someone, and you are a someone, and everyone else is a someone, and you matter just as much to me as I do to myself. And so does the white pine tree outside. And so does the nuthatch, the ivory-billed woodpecker, which they just found still exist. Isn't that awesome? Three live birds. I think that's pretty cool. I'm celebrating. Some of my relatives that I thought were long gone are still here. Makes me happy. So everything you do for everyone else. And we will do what we can to help with that. Off to you, Jan.
Well, thank you. That was really good comments, and pretty encapsulating, I think. I guess what I'll just say is, you asked this question about collective versus individual ideas and that kind of thing, representation. And I guess I think a lot about, historically, Rich talked a little bit about that individuality versus that whole group dynamic. And I think about how, colonizing forces would sometimes try to get whole indigenous communities get represented by one person, and that usually was not ever the way we functioned. And even today, you see what it means to be an organization, what it means to be a tribe. Sometimes we're forced to pick one person to represent ourselves. That's just the way sometimes, society works in this country, and that's one of those times where it's like, one person does not speak for everybody, generally speaking. Just because your friend Ronnie, who's part Native, is okay with Native mascots does not mean every other Native person, does not mean every Abenaki you meet is going to be okay with it. Don't assume that one person represents everyone else. I think that's an unfortunate thing that I think a lot of people inherently just kind of get. I see it in history textbooks all the time. I hear about King Philip's War being like a race war. King Philip represented all the Indians, and that's simply just not the case. There were Native people fighting on against King Philip, and it's really important to remember that people are varied. We are humans. We all make our own choices. We all have our own opinions. Everyone's going to have different ideas on something like land acknowledgement. You can't just assume that one person represents them all. And I think you have to really look at the communities, at what the communities to say as a whole, and also assume, though, that the community is probably doing its best to represent itself, but also recognize that there are always going to be outliers. There are always going to be people with different ideas, and yeah, I think that's something that's just really important to remember, is that we are as varied as any other group of people. You can't expect one person to represent us, and sometimes even our community leaders, like I said, who are forced into these positions, they're not necessarily representing everybody either. But the best thing to do, I guess, is sort of just look at what community members are saying and try to get as many opinions as you can. And yeah, that's a very complicated question, and yeah, it's something I think takes a lot of thinking about. And yeah.
Well, you're all a tough act to follow. So I think I'm just going to do a little recapping. With Sherry, she had talked about the idea there is no one representative. If somebody stands up and saying they are the representative for all Abenaki people, that's a good indicator that they're not. Because nobody can represent all of us. And so that was something, and the idea that we are made of smaller groups of people, that then come together at times when it's needed. When we need to talk and have bigger conversations, we will come together and have those conversations. And what Rich was talking about, being in relationship, and there is no one way. You have to do what's right. Something I would add to what Rich was saying is talking about the idea that if we keep cultural concepts in mind and think about those 7 generations, it makes it harder to kind of go wrong when you're thinking about a lot of people and not just yourself. So I think that's really important, and something we try to do, so that way we can make better decisions. And what Chan was saying, I love what you were bringing up about King Philip. He was often held up as he's the leader of them all. And that happens when you look at representation in media about the Abenaki. That happens as well, where the media will go to one person over and over again. And there are many, even if you talk about leaders, there are many different types of leaders. There are chiefs, maybe there are organizational leaders, maybe there are community leaders, there are elders, there are appointed people in families, and in individual families. not just in larger clans, but in smaller family groups as well. So there's a lot of variety in voice and things like that. So we're all doing our best for representation, and but yeah, no single person is the single voice. And I'd love to pick up one of the threads that Chan brought up, because it was one of the questions. It was actually the next question. So let me pull that up. You mentioned land acknowledgements. So I'll give you all a moment to think while I pull up the next question.
Vera, can I share a really quick story about the Indian crabs?
Oh yeah, please.
So there's this story about these two guys, non-Indian guy and an Indian guy, are going to go down and gather crabs, and they got their buckets and they go down to the water and they both fill their buckets with crabs, and it's a long walk back up to the cabin. So as they're walking up, the Indian guy's walking along and his crabs are just down in the bucket, and the other guy, his crabs are like climbing out, they're falling all over the ground. He's like, take him a really long time. When he finally got up to the cabin, he said to the Indian guy, well, what are you doing? He goes, how come you just walked up here and your crabs all stayed in the bucket? Mine are like all flopping out. And the Indian guy says, yeah, he goes, they're Indian crabs. He goes, if one tries to climb up, the others pull them down. When I first heard that story, to me, it was about how we hold each other in balance. It was about how if a crab is going to go out and fall off the edge and maybe careen to its death, that his brothers and sisters are going to hold him in place and not let him get out on that limb and get sawn off. So to me, it was about just how we as Native people hold each other and have each other's backs and protect each other. The more common interpretation is that Indians won't let anybody succeed and they get jealous and they yank them down so they don't succeed. I never could really understand how flopping over the top and smashing on the ground was success. I just really never saw that. So I think that that's just an interesting story about how what Rich was talking about, that we're in community and that we support one another. And, even when we have like a personality that starts to become kind of bigger than life, that we as a community have a responsibility to help hold that person and help them to not get out on that limb by themselves. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that. It reminded me of what we were talking about.
Thank you for sharing that, Sherry. It's very appreciated and something for everyone to think about. There's another interpretation of that same bucket where crabs are trying to get out to save their lives, to do better, and other crabs pull them back down and don't let them get out, because if one crab gets out, they can reach down and help the next crab out. But the other crabs are like, no, you can't get out if I can't get out, So I've heard both sides of that story. And both interpretations are very, very valid. So Chan had mentioned land acknowledgements, and that was one of the questions that had come up from our audience. And they said, I observe land acknowledgements as a common activity these days. I wonder how to go about doing land acknowledgements by voicing it during events or developing signage. How might that be done with respect and possibly collaboration with Indigenous people? And part of me just wants to answer that first, but I'm going to hold back and hand this over to my colleagues to answer.
Okay, well, following the order we've been using, I'll go first. So as they become more and more popular, initially for me, it was sort of like, okay, that's interesting, but like, I don't know, it sort of felt like, oh, this is the cool popular thing to do. Everybody wanted to do it, but what did it really mean? But it wasn't offensive, it just whatever. So I was kind of lukewarm and neutral about it for quite a while. And as time went on, for us within the Abenaki Trails project, different groups and organizations that have decided to do it have asked us, like, how can we write something meaningful? So, or, well, whatever. So So we've helped them as much as we could. And for us, one of the big things, and Chief Don really helped lead the way, I think, for us with this is, that's really nice that you acknowledge you're on our land. Now, what goes with that? And so, you know, if you're an institution that has hundreds of thousands of acres of land and you want to acknowledge you're on Abenaki land, this unceded Abenaki land, you know, what about foraging rights for Abenaki people? And what about memorandum of understandings or conservation easements for the next 7 generations to make sure that Abenaki people have access to the medicine and the food? So we worked along those lines, but I just sat through, we did a presentation at the Hopkinton Historical Society on the Abenaki Seeds Project. And so the head of the Historical Society started with his land acknowledgement statement, and it was pretty cool. It was unique to them and all that. And I realized after a while, didn't say anything, just chuckled to myself that I had helped one of the town selectmen formulate that for their town meeting a couple of years ago. And then the Kearsarge Food Hub people did their land acknowledgement statement, was part of their presentation. And so that came out, and Kathleen said, I just grabbed something off the internet. And then Sherry was like, hey, let's do something, you know, unique. And so it was like so interesting that they both were meaningful and they were rooted to that place and the work that they did in that place and their relationship to us. And both of them had already given us access to things and been our partners and our supporters. So anyway, I think that I have a lot of different thoughts about it, but I think it can be meaningful and it can be real if you're working together with your local people, as Rich keeps saying.
Thank you for that. Rich or Chan, would one of you like to go next?
Sure, I'll go next. We have to maintain order. No, we don't. Thank you, Sherry. Uliwani, I will add a couple points here. What is an acknowledgement? What does that word mean? An acknowledgement is a statement that you embrace, admit to, acknowledge the presence of something which you did not before. It's an acknowledgement. It's putting it out there. It's putting it on record. It's putting yourself on notice. So there's that. And I think we can agree that for the most part, the stories that have been told to us and that we've been telling ourselves for a long time did not encompass that, that reality, that these are indigenous lands. They have always been indigenous lands. People have been here for 13,000 years in our area, according to the archaeological record. That's a very long time. They are still here. When you acknowledge land, because of the nature of indigeneity, people and place are the same thing. When you acknowledge the land, you acknowledge the people. You can't wiggle out of that. They come together. As human beings, we have to, we see our responsibility as to our own kind first. Those are the ones we identify with most closely. And so when you acknowledge land as native land, you acknowledge the people, and it comes right along with it. Again, it's part of the package. And so bring them into the equation. Land acknowledgements are something that is undertaken by folks who have not done that before. Traditionally speaking, Native people acknowledge the land every day when they wake up. It almost goes without saying, except that it is said. This practice, you could look at it as ritual, as ceremony, and it is ceremony. This practice is a reminder to you every day that this is the way it is. And if we are gifted with the ability to be here in this place and everything that comes with it, we should be grateful. That's the acknowledgement. When you say in Abenaki, I am grateful, you say, Ndalamizi, I am grateful. And what you are actually saying is, I am in the way I should be. Get on the bus, get with the program. Get up in the morning, say hello to grandfather when he comes over the edge. Good to see you again. And when he goes away, and when grandmother comes up and walks across the sky, say hello. Acknowledge. Go through life that way. All of our relations. So just like, it's a big deal. It really is. And then once you got those words out there, then you got to do something about it. You don't immediately say, okay, I got my acknowledgement done. What can I go do now for myself? That's not how it works. It goes back and forth. When you acknowledge the land acknowledges you. It talks right back to you. Keep your ears open, you'll hear it. It's pretty cool. Jan.
Yeah, thank you. That was really great. And I also think I agree. This is just, I want to clarify, this is all, my opinion, my thoughts on it, kind of just watching how other institutions sort of struggle with the idea of how to do this kind of thing best. And I understand and I respect a lot of ideas on it, on sort of in a lot of parts of the spectrum, whether you're on the kind that's like, land acknowledgements mean basically nothing, or if you're the kind that's, says that they're, extremely important and everyone has to do them. I really understand both, but I tend to take a approach that sort of thinks that they really need to be followed up by some sort of action. Because, the worst thing you can do is just acknowledge, say what you're doing wrong maybe, and then not actually do anything to change it. You're still causing harm perhaps, but if you don't actually do anything about it, it's an issue. And just like little things like, if you're a school and you're doing a land acknowledgement, maybe have some parts of your curriculum that then include, say, education about that particular Indigenous group. So if we're talking about like Vermont, New Hampshire, if you're going to do a land acknowledgement, maybe have something for the students to see that is about Abenaki people, for example, and talk about perhaps land dispossession and that kind of thing. I think it's important to acknowledge in some way. It gets it out there. It absolutely clarifies your positionality. That's a really important thing to do, is what are you? Like, you didn't just pop up here, all this stuff, it did not just arrive here naturally. What are you? Why are you here? And when you acknowledge the land and where it comes from and how you got there, you do that. And I personally think that that's a really important first step. I just also do like to see that there is something to be done afterwards. But I do think that there are also other forms that are really great. So I'm at Brown University, and one thing I kind of think of when I think about land acknowledgement is that just down the hill from the university, there's a big mural that was made by an Narragansett painter, and it's got a Narragansett community member just kind of sitting there smiling, and then they're holding a picture of one of their relatives or ancestors. And what I really like about that is it very much just says, it is our land, we are still here. It clarifies kind of what's happening, and especially next to the school, I think something like that is kind of powerful because it shows that positionality again, and I think that's really, really important. But yeah, in general, I'd say try to follow up with something that actually maybe tries to rectify the issues you outline. Just try to be aware of what you are, where you come from, and that kind of thing, and maybe how you can work towards really engaging with, say, Abenaki people and inviting them into your community, accepting that they are there, they are still here, we are still here, and this is our Indigenous place of inhabitants, and we are just going to stay here. So I think that's really important to sort of include us in it in general. And then, yeah, I guess, talk with people in any way you can to sort of show that. Yeah.
I agree with all of you, and all these good words that were just said about land acknowledgement, whether it be a personal practice, an organizational practice, and it's an indigenous practice, you know, that has, in a certain way, it's sort of been sort of appropriated even by settler colonial people, right? Because we acknowledge the land, we, you know, as Rich was mentioning, we acknowledge the land, the sun and the moon as they travel, all of nature and so forth, and the land and the people are connected. And what Sherry was saying, yeah, you know, once you put a land acknowledgement into the Ethernet, it's there forever, right? And then some people are just going to reach out and grab that land acknowledgement and use it. What Chan was saying about that next step is so important. What comes next? The first time I heard a land acknowledgement, I was in Ontario, and I got like really weepy-eyed. I was like, oh my God, you know, I couldn't believe that it was being said. And I thought that was pretty incredible. And that's because I think sometimes as Indigenous people, we're happy just for that basic acknowledgement. But in the dominant culture, people push for more, right? And, you know, we have to do more than just trying to check off a box. Land acknowledgements can't simply be performative actions that we do to check off your box. I did my DEIA practice for the day, done. You know, it has to be a part of your everyday practices where you are. So maybe you say it, you find ways to work with us, you know, like my friends and colleagues have been saying, find ways to bring us in to daily practices and not just have it be a special statement or a statement that hangs on the doorway as people walk in. About a week ago, I worked with a group of school children in Moortown, and I worked with pre-K through sixth graders, excuse me. And the older kids for quite a few weeks, and then the younger kids had, we had very short engagements with the whole school over the course of the day. And one of the older children created a land acknowledgement. And I have to say, it was the best darn land acknowledgement I have ever heard. And they wrote it in like 5 minutes after we talked about it. And so I think you have to enter into the idea of land acknowledgements in a very good way to begin with, and know what you want, and also understand there are different types of land acknowledgements. Do you want to do the least amount of possible work you can do in your land acknowledgement? Just say, oh yeah, we're on Abenaki land, now what? Or you can say, Abenaki, they're the original stewards of the environment that, you know, continue to take care of the lands and waters. Do you want to say all that and then plus admit yourself, you know, yourself as being part of the settler colonial culture that has, you know, been part of the issue, part of the oppression that's happened for hundreds of years? There are many different ways to come into land acknowledgements, and you really have to be truthful with yourself about what you want to do, because land acknowledgements, if they're just performative, can do harm. And I don't think most people that do them want to do harm. But if it's purely performative, it's definitely not helping. So those are sort of my thoughts about that. And like my colleagues, I've spent a lot of time thinking about that. And it's one of the things that I teach about and talk with about people pretty daily in my life. I get about 20 emails a week with people saying they're getting married and they'd like to do a land acknowledgement, or they just bought a farm and they'd like me to write them a land acknowledgement, or invite me out to do a land acknowledgement for their event. And to recognize there is a difference between land acknowledgement and Abenaki welcome. So if you want to have an event and you're going to bring an Abenaki person there, when they speak, they're giving an Abenaki welcome to you and your organization and your audience. And the land acknowledgement itself is done by the settler organization. And And I could talk for hours on this, but I think we have to call it there. And we've gone through the questions that we received via registration. So I'm curious. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions that may have arisen during the conversation. And I think Eloise has been keeping an eye on the chat. I don't know if anything has come in. And if there's nothing there,
so
go ahead,
there
Eloise.
have been very appreciative comments, but not questions per se. So if anyone does have a question, this would be a good time.
And you could either raise your little virtual hand down by the reactions. We also have the chat box if you want to type out a message to us. And Ash, can you keep an eye out for any hands that might be raised?
Oh, I see one person. Yeah. We have a Swift who has a question. Go ahead, Swift.
Hi. Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So I am the administrator at the Garland School, and I'm curious what each of you, or maybe one or two of you, would see as one of the first steps on bringing Indigenous culture, Abenaki culture to young children that maybe haven't had any conversations of what would be your first moment? Is that introducing them to nature? Like in what way?
I work in schools pretty often, and I'm a museum educator dealing with Native American education. And it totally depends on what age level it is. So like when you're working with preschoolers, you're learning through
pre-K.
play.
Sorry,
Yeah,
pre-K.
Yeah, you would, that's more through play. That might be bringing somebody in, bringing a culture bearer in, that spends some time doing some singing or storytelling, maybe cultural objects, movement, that type of thing. But if it's older kids, it changes as it gets older, just like with any audience. I see Sherry shaking her head. Yes. So I'm wondering if you want to jump in there. Or Rich or Chan.
I think you covered it. Dance, I was thinking of.
Dance, movement. Yeah, when I was working with the preschool last week, and we were the topic was about water, and part of the play portion of it was, how they have the fabric parachutes and stuff like that. We had talked a little bit about Abenaki views on water, and we had one of those little blue parachutes, and we were doing the movement, the parachute up, parachute down as we were talking about it. And they also had time to talk about, while we were doing that, they were taking turns passing under the parachute, talking about their favorite water. So finding their connection to water, what was their favorite thing. And as they would go through under the blue parachute, they would pretend to be that water and talk about it. And then, I was able to bring it back to how that might relate to our culture. I don't know if that's helpful. And okay, Eloise, I leave the chat to you. I see some things just popped in.
Yes, there's a question about how best to avoid cultural appropriation in our work as outdoor educators.
Who would like to take that question?
Well, I'll start. First of all, it's appropriation when things are taken and credit is not given, but first permission is not asked. So that's where the appropriation starts. So if you come across something and you want to know more about it, go to the source, ask them how they feel about you sharing it, and then if permission is gained, ask them if they would like to speak to that first, because it's theirs to hold. And if it is shared freely. Always give attribution and direct people back to the source. It's not for the receiver to benefit from that directly. The benefit needs to fall back to the source. It's pretty simple. It's a little bit of, you know, check yourself and give the honor where it belongs. And that's not, it's not a losing proposition at all. You don't lose out on that because it will come back to you then. It actually gets better. So don't worry about it. But you know, put the honor and the respect where it belongs, get permission, give attribution, and go from there. You do want to know if you are making a misstep, so ask.
I would build on what Rich is saying in terms of, you know, and it also builds on what we talked about earlier, that all Abenaki do not agree, right? And so when I hear somebody who's not Abenaki stand up and say, the Abenaki, blah, 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 whatever they're saying might be something maybe one Abenaki or maybe some white person wrote in a book about Abenaki once. Or so I really love what Rich is saying in terms of, if you see something, talk to the person that's the source of it. If it's a historical something, ask your local Abenaki or whoever you know that's Abenaki about it, and always attribute the source. And I mean, it would not be appropriation or rudeness, in my opinion, if you said, I read something in blah, blah, blah history book or whatever source that I really liked. I don't know if this is true or not, but it said blah, blah, blah. That would be a way that's not rude and it's not appropriative, because you're speaking about something you read spoke to your heart, but you're not claiming that all Abenaki blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I would like to add on to that, and build a little bit upon what both of you said, right? If we were teaching at colleges, we would be using citations. It would be an academic citation, maybe at Chicago, MLA, you know, whatever citation source you're using. In outdoor education, how do you do that? And I've had outdoor educators, you know, that where we've had talks about this because they really feel like they're in a quandary. Most of the skills they're teaching in outdoor education come from where? Indigenous people, place-based people. If you're teaching in an outdoor Vermont setting, you're likely teaching something about Abenaki outdoor skills and things like that. So have an Abenaki source to cite. So somebody was like, oh my God, how do we cite something that happened to, you know, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago? I was like, okay, what's the activity? Working with birch bark. I was like, oh, go visit the Vermont Abenaki Artist Association website and look up an artist that works with birch bark and learn how to talk about that artist and incorporate that artist work, you know, incorporate Aaron York's work, his birch bark etching into that. You can incorporate Bill Gould's canoe making or Aaron York's canoe making into whatever the presentation you're doing is. So there is a way, and you know, you simply add, oh yes, you know, there is this Abenaki artist, their name is such and such, and they're from this tribe, and this is something that they do. And I'm going to show you a little bit about that. Chan, would you like to throw add in any final words?
I was just like nodding my head a lot to what you're just saying. I think you just brought up like really good point. You said it very effectively too. I think that's super important. You know, you talk about outdoor education and where a lot of those skills come from. We have specialists who focus on those things, and it's great to talk to them about it. I guess, you know, in general with cultural appropriation, don't try to explain things that you don't understand, because there's a good chance you might not. And it's good to find people who, you know, are likely to know more a bit about it than you. I mean, obviously, you can go into the whole like, you know, headrest thing, but if we're talking about more like realistic, like what you're going to see in the curriculum, we have people you can contact, and it's always better to consult people, get other opinions, and absolutely people who are in the community, because they'll definitely know more and be able to guide you a little bit perhaps as well.
Thank you for that. Wow, our time together has flown by, and I want to make sure we respect everyone's time. And we're about 2 minutes from the end of the program, and we have thank you messaging to do. I want you to know that we dropped a lot of links into the chat. If you would like to download the chat, go ahead, or possibly we can grab the chat afterwards, and maybe Sam can help email it out to everyone. So we have those links. There were a lot of links to organizations and Facebook pages, so all sorts of social media that are going to be really effective in helping you. We also have a short survey that you'll get a link to with that. And surveys are so important for us to help us to continue improving the quality of the programs that we add. So we're going to put in a special ask that you fill out that short survey, which is just a few questions. And there are upcoming Abenaki events. So please look on our event pages. We have an amazing talk coming up that's sponsored by the Artist Association, or hosted by the Artist Association and the Arts and Education Center. Jean O'Brien, who's a White Earth Ojibwe scholar, is going to be doing a talk about one of their recent books called Firsting and Lasting. I might get the title slightly wrong. Firsting and Lasting New England Indians Out of Existence. And basically it talks about the erasure myth and how it all started. And that's going to be at the end of the month on the 28th. And there's the Abenaki Heritage Weekend coming up on June 20th. And some other talks, perhaps Rich, Sherry, Jan, if anybody wants to let us know any important events or where to look for them.
We're having an art show at the Fells in Newbury, New Hampshire, that'll be opening. And then June 4th in Holderness, we're going to be doing reunion events. So there'll be demonstrations of dugout canoe making and birch bark canoe making and basket making, excuse me, and a lot of other Abenaki arts. And then in August, History Live in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Again, there's a lot of us will be there doing a lot of different demos and what have you. And the Hopkinton Historical Society is doing shows this summer or exhibits this summer on food, and they have some programs. But watch our Facebook page.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Sherry. And Sam dropped into the chat box something I completely did not mention. Nibizone Water is Life, which is our traveling exhibit. It's going to be in Virgins at the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum and at the Brattleboro Art and Culture Museum. Rich, would you have something to add?
I will echo the encouragement to visit our website and our Facebook page, just simply Atowi, A-T-O-W-I. And we list our events there. We have one coming up next Tuesday in the evening on Zoom. We will be featuring a presentation by Stacy Gould about the Circle of Courage, the youth program in the Swanton Missisquoi community, which has been going on for a long, long time and doing great work, keeping the culture vibrant there. I will be speaking 2 weeks after that. So that's 3 weeks from today, again on Tuesday. That is not posted yet because I haven't decided what I'm talking about yet. It will probably have something to do with an Abenaki perspective using language lessons. There's so much knowledge embedded in the language. As one of my teachers said, the secrets of the culture are in the language. And so it's essential. Another way of seeing the world. We also post everyone else's events on our page to the degree that we can keep up with them. And there's a lot more than you might think. So check that out.
Thank you for that, Rich. Yes, and please share. Chan, does Alnôbaiwi have anything coming up that we should know about, or where can people look to find out if there's something coming up in there in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Check our website, www.alnôbaiwi.com. I think it's somewhere in the chat. definitely check our Facebook. We always post like upcoming events and stuff on there. We definitely, as we get into the summer, we're going to have some more. I believe it's the 6th of May. I know we will be having some sort of a cultural celebration, which I believe is going to be in the Echo Center in Burlington. So definitely look on our Facebook page and our website, and so you can stay updated on all that.
Perfect. Thank you. So Gitsi Willawini, thank you. First, to our partner organizations at Alnôbaiwi, thank you, Chan. At Abenakis Trails Project, thank you to Sherry. And at Atowi, thank you to Rich Holschuh. And thank you to Sam Stegman at Vermont Wilderness Project and Amy Hyatt for helping to organize all of this to get us all together, and to Ash and Eloise helping us with the tech and questions in the chat box, and to all of our co-sponsors out there. There were so many co-sponsors that helped to make this possible. The Bonnyvale Environmental Education Center, Crow's Path, EarthWalk Vermont, Farm and Wilderness Foundation, the Green Mountain Conservancy, the Inside Out program at Antioch University, the North Branch Nature Center, the Retreat Farm, Retribe, Susu Community Farm, the Garland School, and the Nature Center. So thank you all to you. We couldn't be doing this kind of work and reaching out to you without this kind of help. And please reach out to us with future partnership ideas and things like that. Thank you all so much for your kind words, words of encouragement, and wonderful questions. Good night.
Wuli Wini MCV. Pamlo quick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night. Thank you.